Hi, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to this panel, which is entitled, Are Telcos Delivering Services Faster Since They Embarked on Digitalisation? So my name is Kester Mann. I'm Director of Consumer and Connectivity at CCS Insight. For any of you who don't know CCS Insight, we are a research and advisory company based in London, also with offices on the west coast of America. We've been tracking telecoms and technology for around 30 years now. In fact, I believe this month is our 30th anniversary. And we have 28 members of staff, including 15 analysts. And we offer a varied and comprehensive range of services spanning telecom operator strategy, mobile networks, cellular devices, enterprise, wearables, virtual and augmented reality, artificial intelligence, and much more. And I'm lucky to have a great set of panelists with me today. They are Mariam Kaynia, VP Director of Massmarket at Telefonica Germany, Michelle Hastings, Head of Digital at Vodafone Business, and Ahmed Soliman, Senior Director, Telecom and Media at Intellias. So welcome all. I'll ask each of my panelists to introduce themselves shortly, but just before I do, I'd like to take 2 or 3 minutes to set the scene and share a few pieces of research from CCS Insight's annual Senior Leadership IT Investment Survey that I think will be interesting and relevant to this session. So this research was carried out late last year. CCS Insight surveyed 1,000 decision makers in senior roles throughout the US and Europe and across a range of industry sectors. And to share a few findings, when we asked about expected changes in IT investment within their organisation over the next 12 months compared to the previous, 70% pointed to a planned increase, including 20% that expected an increase of more than 15%. And less than 10% only said that they expect to spend less. In terms of priority of network investment over the next 2 years, 5G deployment and operations scored the highest, followed by virtual network services, Wi-Fi and broadband, fixed wireless access, and private mobile networks. In terms of priority areas, well, security came out on top, as it has done in our last few surveys, followed by data analytics, data management, and IT operations and service management. We also looked at the topic of the day, and we're going to discuss it later in the panel, AI, and in particular generative AI. 40% of companies said they have already planned generative AI or are ready to deploy it. A similar number expect to deploy it in the next year. And only 8% said that they would deploy beyond a 2-year timeframe or did not yet know when they would deploy generative AI. So how is all this relevant today? Well, companies clearly want to embrace new technologies. They want to move online. They want to support. They want support with the transition to digital. And this is where telcos need to change too, not just to improve their own operations, but to support the transformation of their enterprise customers. So the questions we're going to address today really are around how fast telcos are transitioning, who is moving the fastest, and how important is speed in service delivery. So I'm going to turn it over now to our 3 esteemed panelists. And to start off, maybe I could ask each of you in turn to, first of all, introduce yourself and your organisation. And then if you could please to share an example of how the migration to digital is having an important or successful impact on service delivery for your company. And perhaps I could ask that first of all to Michelle.
Sure, thank you, Kester, and it's lovely to be here today. Thank you very much, everybody. So I'm Michelle Hastings. I head up the digital team for Vodafone Business in the UK. I suppose thinking of examples here and of how that shift to digital is really helping our businesses, I'm going to be a little bit cheeky actually and take 2 from quite different ends of the spectrum. So I spend a lot of time with smaller business customers, and what we see a lot of in that space is businesses who know that there has been a shift to digital, but they don't really know how to leverage that well. We offer VHub, which is a free advisory service to all businesses in the UK, don't need to be a Vodafone customer at all. And as part of that, what we spend a lot of time doing with businesses is helping them understand how digital can support their business. And in doing so, that might mean that they are looking at perhaps their own business security needs. It might be looking at how they utilize data and transform that. It might be looking at e-commerce, right, and how they get the very best from e-commerce activity and an e-commerce channel. So it's very varied. So I suppose at that end of the market, it can look like that for many of our smaller business customers. Up at the other end of the market, we could be looking at things like software-defined networks and cloud-based calling services. Here in the UK, we've got a major infrastructure switch-off happening over the coming years, and obviously helping businesses to prepare for that is really critical.
Great, thank you very much indeed, Michelle, for that. And then perhaps I could go to Mariam next.
Hi, Kester. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Thank you for having me. So very briefly, I'm Mariam Kaynia. I'm Director for Massmarket at Telefonica Germany. So I manage all the portfolio development and launches for our B2C and B2P customers, including, among others, our digital channels, which obviously is hugely important now as we talk about the journey towards digital. And you asked about examples of where we are involved as Telefonica Germany and what we do in this digital space. So actually today we are running a major transformation, a major digital transformation, which covers everything from our channels down to core BSS systems. We are moving to microservice architecture. We are doing a cloudification into public cloud with all the three hyperscalers. We are also doing a business simplification as part of this journey. And so it's a very big transformation that is allowing us to achieve, let's say, the benefits that digitalization, when we talk about digitalization, we need to also break that down a bit. So the benefits that it brings is being more agile, giving much more self-control to the customers, allowing for digital journeys, allowing for more use of data, and as a consequence, also automation. So basically, this transformation is an enabler for us to achieve all of that because it is simplifying our entire landscape and creating the digital journeys so that we can bring more both towards our customers as well as internally being able to leverage data and do more automation and improvements.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed for that, Mariam. And then Ahmed, if I could turn to you, please.
Thank you. So my name is Ahmed Soliman. I head TMT vertical at Intellias in Europe. Who doesn't know Intellias? Intellias is a Ukrainian headquarters software engineering services company. We have over 3,000 software and IT experts in 14 delivery locations in Europe, Americas, and Asia, serving actually customers across the globe. So to that question, so I spent like over 20 years between technology companies and telco. And to look at digitalization is like there's some kind of maturity there. So some customers, they start with like, very simple questions like, oh, I need to optimize this operation. I need to streamline this process. So how I can do this with digital. And then you move up the journey. It's like, oh, I need actually more insights now to be able to like, to get more ideas for my business, right? So what to do more until maybe you reach to the most mature kind of customers where digital is embedded in their business models. So actually they use digital to create new revenue streams. And I can give you many examples of that from a services company point of view, technology services company. So we can talk about legacy modernization, cloudification. So all what Mariam was like talking about in terms of digital transformation. But I'll just try to give you one current example of taking something that has been, I don't know, maybe very close. So network data, network planning kind of data, right? So, and then enable this for other parts of the business within the telco operator to use it, like i.e. marketing, for example, so you have the location-based data of my of my coverage. You have the coverage heat maps. You have the stats of the devices. How can I abstract this to, let's say, marketing to understand where they can promote new products, where they can promote new services. And they're here, like, talking about this, we can say we are not doing this in isolation of some of the new tools, which is Gen AI. So how to enable a marketing personnel just to ask a very simple question in the layman language to that massive, complex like database with all these data points to give them also an actionable insights so they can take a decision of like, oh, let's launch this new service in this particular area or this particular region or this particular country of Manitoba. Just a quick example of how I have seen some of the more mature companies using digital in general to transform their businesses.
That's great. Thank you, Ahmed, for that. And thanks for all the interesting responses there. So I wonder perhaps if we can move on a little bit, just to perhaps getting a little bit more into the core of this this panel around speed of service delivery. And I wonder perhaps maybe, Ahmed, I could stay with you with this next one. In terms of how important, you're in a very interesting, unique position because you're obviously, you work with the telcos and you're outside of them. How important is speed of delivery for telcos in terms of bringing services to market? And I guess how far behind the big tech players, the hyperscalers, are they? Because we hear a lot about telcos being slow to move, they're not very agile, lumbering, and so on. I don't know if that's still fair or where you perhaps see the operating. You're smiling at me, so I'm looking forward to this answer. But what's your perspective on that?
So first of all, I have to admit, we are sitting with two of the most progressive telcos in the market, Vodafone and Telefonica. And not just because, they share the panel with me, but this is reality. And I will tell you why, right? So when we talk about this, move to digital or the speed actually that you be able to come up with new products and services and pivot also some of your existing core offerings, I would instead of giving very high level kind of problem statements, I just maybe speak about maybe three dimensions. The first dimension is when we talk about being able to use the most current tools, right? Being able to, and this is also one of the differentiator between, I think, hyperscalers or technology companies in general and the telcos, right? So no doubt that you need now the whole market is moving to the open source, right? This whole open AI is actually it's an open source, but how can very regulated industry like telco use open source with all the constraints around that? So this is one area around the tools available out there. Second is when we talk about talent, right? So talent, availability of talent in-house or ability to actually acquire talent. There's, of course, big difference between both telcos and technology companies, right? And also the flexibility that maybe some technology companies or actually most of the technology companies have is let's acquire this company, let's acquire this startup, right? We have no problem pivoting into upskilling, cross-skilling our talent. Again, compared to telcos, how they are doing that, I think that is something to also look at. And then I think the third thing from the business itself, the type of investment that both telcos and technology companies would do. So back in the days, right? So who acquired Skype, right? Who acquired WhatsApp, right? So technology companies are much, much faster to spot those kind of trends. Actually, so Skype, again, it changed the way that actually we use voice calls, for example, right? And then WhatsApp, they kind of again, changed the way that we text each other, right? So here comes the main differences between three of the differences between the hyperscalers or technology companies and the telcos. Speed of services or speed of digital. I think no doubt that maybe thinking about how to be smarter This is one important thing. It is, again, every company moving into digital, they want to be smart in terms of being faster to market, being more efficient, being more predictable. Second thing is the innovation part of it. How can I be more innovative and test ideas faster and fail ideas faster? We won't be able to do that without having a very strong digital foundation to enable you this. Then you mentioned something around security as a top priority. So this is also very, very important objective of digital and being more digitally enabled. That security, the pitfall of this, or maybe the argument here is more digital, you be more vulnerable, you will be, right? But again, it is much easier, in my opinion, to try to secure yourself when you are more digital.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Thank you, Ahmed. Mariam, perhaps I could bring you in here. I just wonder how perhaps you respond to some of that. And I wonder even, are we asking a fair question perhaps to compare the telcos with the hyperscalers? Is that even a valid discussion? But I'd welcome your thoughts on this one.
Yes. So first of all, I fully agree with what Ahmed said. I smiled when he said we are slow. I think it's not about being slow because we do not want to. It's simply because of our legacy landscape that makes it hard to adapt as fast as some of the others do. But I'll get to that in a second. Kester, to answer your question, should we be comparing? In my view, it's not about comparing. It's a partnership that is required. And this is how we also operate in the industry. We are not competing. We are not trying to, let's say, take each other's lunches. We actually need each other in order to be able to become more digital and more efficient and more agile towards our customers as a whole. So there are capabilities that the hyperscalers bring to the table, which we want to leverage. We do not want to build those ourselves. And there are capabilities and functionalities that telcos do bring to the table, where they have an expertise built and also a go-to-market towards customers built for many years. So it's really more about we call it often hyper collaboration across the ecosystem to bring together the different players, be it from cloud providers, it could be solution providers, it's of course telcos, it's the in-system integrators, and only jointly can we really deliver what the market needs. And why is that complexity coming in? It's in my view because the customer demand is changing very fast. If you just think back to 10 years ago, the way we were using our mobile phones or the expectations of customers 20 years ago was a completely different one. And even back then, projecting forward how streaming and mobile phones will be used in the future was not easy to do. So very, very different types of projections. And this is all back to customer demand changing so fast, where customers want to have more self-control over what they do. There's much more digital channels used compared to, the old traditional way of I go over to the store in my neighborhood and I need someone behind the desk who tells me exactly how I dial what. So you have on one side this element of customer demand changing. And on the other side, you do have the simple, let me say, dynamic of revenues being stagnant, which comes back to customers not wanting to pay for all these new services, while at the same time our costs and the new cycles of technology are coming. So our costs are continuously there and increasing. And therefore, that brings us to, let's say, another dynamic, which is one what Ahmed referred to. We do need new revenue sources to think about and leverage the current capabilities that we have and be able to monetize. And then on the other side, on the cost element, which is internally focused, how do we become more efficient to deliver all these new demands? So if you put the whole landscape together, it is more complex because you want to deliver more, you want to do much more for our customers and be more agile and efficient. And at the same time, we need to manage both revenue as well as the cost side of it. Yeah, so that's a bit of the whole realm of why it is so complex. And again, going back to my maybe first statement, why we need to collaborate really across the industry to make it for the benefit of the market.
Yeah, that's great. And Michelle, I want to turn it to you. Would you echo those thoughts from Mariam? And I just wonder as well, do you now perhaps see a bit of a change in perception between operators and hyperscalers. I think in the past, I felt that there's been that kind of division there. There's been a bit of a competitive threat. Do operators perhaps look at the hyperscalers in a different way now, perhaps in the way Mariam was describing, as around more of a partner in crime, a collaborator, or how's that transition moved over the last year or two, for example?
Yeah, sure. So I think I agree with so many of Mariam's points, actually, and I think starting there and taking this back to customers, I think really the right answer, whether that is to partner directly with a telco or to partner with an integration partner, comes back to what are you buying and why, right? And we talked in there, I think Mariam used the words around customer demand changing, and we really need to understand what is changing in that space and why is it changing. So is this about customers who are saying they need a bit more oxygen in their P&L, they need to reduce their costs? Is it that they've spotted a business opportunity and they need to be able to enable that? Is it that their IT estate has perhaps become too complex over time and they're looking for somebody to partner with to simplify that? Depending on what's driving that behavior will ultimately depend on the right answer, and whether that is to partner with a telco directly or whether that's to use an integration partner instead. And I think it's really important to understand then what's driving that dynamic too. And I think going back to what Ahmed said as well around talent, I think that then starts to play into it too, right? Because if part of what's driving your shift is to say, well, I want to embrace a lot more of this AI, who's best placed to do that? Where am I going to be utilizing that AI? Where's my data? Right. And I think it's starting to understand some of those questions to then be able to make the right decisions about who do I partner with, who's going to help me to fill perhaps the gaps in knowledge that I might have or the gaps that I might have around my IT estate. So I think that is, kind of quite a lot to work through when trying to compare. I think the relationship between the two, I think it continues to evolve. And I think we're very conscious that yes, there are times when actually integration partners are the right way to go, right? And it is important to work really closely together to ultimately get the right outcomes for the customer. So I think that relationship is shifting. I think probably in its earlier days, it was perhaps a little bit harder to necessarily see what each party brought to the table, but I think over time that has become increasingly clear. And I think it will continue to evolve, particularly with topics like AI on the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, no, that's great. Thank you, Michelle. So a couple of mentions already around talent, and that kind of brings me on nicely to the next question I was going to ask, which is around the culture among telcos, and is that culture right to take advantage of some of the trends to digital that we're seeing? And actually, we've had a question through on the Q&A, which also aligns with this around mindset changes amongst leadership to accommodate the move to digital. And I know, for example, we've been hearing about operators recruiting IT software, and obviously there's the move to APIs and so on. But is there the right culture in telcos to embrace some of these opportunities? And perhaps Mariam, I could start with you on that one.
Sure. It's a very good question, as it is actually core or let's say the core objective of why we also are doing our transformation. So why do we do this complex, everything I mentioned, cloudification, microservice architecture, it is not an easy task. The reason is because we do want to get more efficient so that we can have independently deployable components or features, which is indeed the exact principle behind Agile, DevOps, and even if you want to take that next step, bringing it together, Biz DevOps. So this is, in my view, it's a must-have in the telcos. We cannot survive without this, because if we are not fast enough, it means we are not. If we are not agile enough, it means we are not fast enough to adapt. We are not, and I see the question as well rightfully says, it is about getting the feedback from the market, because the customer demand is also changing fast in the market. If we are not fast enough to be able to launch something, deploy it independently with CI/CD and this DevOps, we can't even get fast enough feedback to be able to adopt and then be able to calibrate as per our customers' needs, which means we would be holding either ourselves back or the market back. So I see it as a fundamental, enabler to have that right culture, to move to the agile ways of working, to move towards DevOps in order to achieve everything we talked about in terms of digitalization and higher speed that we talked about. So Kester, I would definitely say yes. Now, maybe a second part of your question was, are we there yet? I think we are all on the journey to achieve it. There's a lot of effort, I think. Of course, Vodafone, Telefonica, Deutsche, so all the big players are working on in order to become more agile, how to even collaborate together on leveraging capabilities across with the open gateway, right? Discussion. Yeah. How do we become more efficient as an entire industry? So we use the same standards. So there's a lot of work done in general in order to improve ourselves so that we can become faster. So we are on the journey. We are maybe not 100% there. We are on our DevOps journey. We are on our agile journey. We are on our digitalization journey. However, the appetite is there, the effort is there, and the attention is definitely there on our side.
Great. That's very good to hear. Ahmed, let me ask this one to you again. I think it's such an interesting perspective to hear, external to the telecom operators. But in terms of your position, your angle, how do you feel around this and the culture? Are telcos challenging to work with? Are they moving fast enough in the right direction? Are the right expertise in place? How do you find that in your operations with them?
So from theoretical point of view, looking at the culture of telcos, it used to be monopoly, right? So you are in a monopoly kind of environment. So your agility is not needed, right? So anywhere you will sell, anywhere you will charge the customers are locked in with you, right? So that is just historically like, the telcos. But of course, now with all what is happening and what Mariam was talking about, like, customer demands are different, and then customers now have the choice, right? So that culture actually started to shift towards, I want to be more customer focused, right? So what my customer needs, rather than just thinking about, I need to just follow the compliance, follow the regulations. Some of the telcos now actually they are pushing back the regulators, right? So that is new. We wouldn't be able to see this like 15, 20 years ago. I've been in IT outsourcing industry for 10 years, right? So there is a shift also in that IT outsourcing in general, again, that's also related to the culture. So before, a telco company, a big bank would come as like, I need maybe a managed service from you. So come in, I will give you the task, you do the task. I don't need to know much what is happening there. I pay you against an SLA, right? Some of them is like, I need like a time and material kind of thing. You bring in your talent inside, I will use them the way that I see, and depending on my kind of demand. In the past few years, that had changed, and we now hear about something called co-sourcing models, vested sourcing. What is that? It is you come in, help me with my project, but also help me upskill my talent. Help me with your know-how of running very complex kind of projects. Help me understand and deploy agile kind of principles. DevOps, DevSecOps, best dev, all this. So you are here as my partner, not just to deliver a project, but also help me or elevate also my team. So I think that is also directly related to the culture and how the telcos and also how the ecosystem actually thinking about this culture change. I wouldn't be able to sell this or think about this 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It is either as I said, managed services or time and material kind of thing. But now, because telcos understand, our customers understand that they can do everything on their own and they need partners to help them. And also, it is not just about you help me. I need you to help me forever, but also I need you to help me to also upskill and change that culture, transform that culture with real kind of projects, with real deliverables on that journey.
Yeah, that's great, Ahmed. And then Michelle, same question to you, and I'm interested on the Vodafone perspective here, because obviously I'm aware of the many partnerships and collaborations, but also there's been a big internal recruitment drive at Vodafone in terms of software engineers and IT experts. So I wonder if you could update on that, and also in terms of how their culture's developing at Vodafone.
Yeah, sure. I think what's been quite interesting, I think, to certainly witness firsthand over the many years I've spent at Vodafone has been that real shift, I think, around bringing some of our core competencies and core capabilities back in-house, and being quite selective about where we do partner. So we are in the process of creating significant development and engineering hubs, and really making sure that we've got the right expertise in-house to see us into the future. And when we think about things like digital transformation, but then really importantly, data transformation, and look at where we have the skills, where we need the talent, and then marry that to culture, you start to kind of touch on quite an important dynamic between those two things. Because I think in order to get the culture right, we need to have people with the right mindset to take the autonomy that they are given and really do something with it and really achieve. And then play that back and share that back, with their peers right across the organization. So I think having the right environment to attract talent, to fill the right skills, to then enable them to ultimately be successful and ultimately help all of us to progress is a really interesting dynamic to look at. Have we got it 100% right yet? No. I doubt any company, I hope no company would ever say that they do, right? Because culture is always evolving, right? It's always improving. There is always something that we can do better. But I think, having the right people, trusting the teams, offering autonomy to talented individuals is a huge, huge step in the right direction.
Yeah, great points, and I totally agree with that. So no, thank you, Michelle. That's really interesting. So we've got just over 10 minutes left, and I'm going to now broach the topic of the day that everyone's talking about, which of course is AI. And we've touched on it a little bit so far. And anyone who was in Barcelona a few weeks ago for Mobile World Congress would have been unable to avoid all the hype and discussion around it. But I wonder perhaps if Michelle, perhaps if I could stay with you on this one. If you're able to give a bit of an update, and goodness, we could probably talk about AI for the rest of the day, but maybe briefly in terms of how you see it playing a role in service delivery, say for now, and maybe say 1 to 2 years down the line.
Sure. Okay. And I think what's also quite interesting is thinking about how we achieve that, but also thinking back to some of the conversation we've been having so far around partnering. Because, part of what we're doing is partnering with the likes of Microsoft and Google in terms of how we test and learn from those sort of AI test cases and AI pilots that we have running at the moment. We have quite a significant number running that, support our frontline teams who then deliver those services, of course, to customers. Automating more of what they do, taking away some of the admin load from them, and of course from end users themselves, is really important. But critically, I think it's also about not stopping there. I think we can all probably see AI in terms of the benefits it can offer for productivity and so on. But it's actually when we then really start to use our larger language models and use generative AI to actually query those models and ask the right questions to then understand a much broader, more dynamic landscape between customer, the products, the market, the industry, the network, and how all of that data then comes together to actually help us understand how we can serve our customers better. So I think there's a lot to be learned in these test cases. There's a lot to be learned from understanding both how we as an internal organisation, but how our customers want to engage. And then there's certainly more work to do as well to really kind of upscale that, kind of hyperscale that sort of approach and that technology to really start to, I think, leapfrog a little bit as well.
Okay, great, thank you. Mariam, same question to you. How about at Telefonica Germany? How are we seeing any initial generative AI uses in the market at the moment?
So as you rightfully said, Kester, it is the topic of the morning and the evening and all, and in Mobile Congress, it was everywhere. I think so AI is a very important topic that we are focusing on. This is let me say, the short answer. The long answer is there is a complexity around finding the real use cases that are linked to the actual value be the return on invest, or being the investment, or being just the revenue side of things, in order to make sure that also the operating model behind adopts to it. Yeah, so it's not just about the technology. And I think we now see that the technology is there. There is so much we can leverage. This is what we saw also in Mobile World Congress. If you go stand by stand, yeah, there is almost like AI everywhere. However, the conversations in a very good way were we're less about selling the technology. It was more open questions. What do you think this AI model or this AI tool can actually do for you? So it starts adopting or adapting a bit more to the needs, so meaning the use cases that it can be applied for, which again links to what value do we want to achieve with it, which again links to who is then behind it, who's the owner, who is actually then getting that benefit, and why are we doing this? So that's the dynamic that we currently face, not only at Telefonica, but also, globally in the entire industry. Those are the type of discussions. Within Telefonica Germany, we have started identifying some clear use cases where we have both, let's say, the operating model linked to the value linked to the owners, et cetera. And then, of course, leveraging the tooling that is needed. One is within AI ops. We see that as being very, very critical part, because in operations, there are a lot of processes or activities that you can get a lot of data on, and you can have automatic feedback loops that allows you to take some routine work out, and you can rather leverage the skills and the people more on building that next AI model and create the next level of quality and as well as efficiency. There is a second part of AI, which is within the delivery piece. So how can we leverage AI models in order to deliver, let's say, more efficiently? This links a bit towards the CI/CD concept. And then there is a third category where we look into the AI and try to identify use cases, which is against the revenue side of things. For example, we use AI heavily for our NBA, NBO, so next best action, next best offer. We use it in the so what we call cognitive digital agent, which is basically a machine learning based agent that replaces the bot, or it's actually it's an AI bot.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of use cases that allows us to be efficient, but also allows also to bring more value towards our customers at the end, which is the quality or new services.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's ultimately what matters. And I'm with you on the MWC discussions. There was some great stuff there, but at the same time, it was a matter of cutting in between some of the hype. Ahmed, how about Intellias? Is generative AI something you're using at the moment? Are you supporting operators with some of their plans around it? What's your perspective?
So first of all, I'm so happy that Michelle and Mariam, talked beyond chatbots, because the moment that you say Gen AI is chatbots, actually, so they give very good use cases in the back end, in the network, and also looking at the revenue generation or cost saving, right? So this is how we should think about AI when they say AI. From a software engineering services provider or partner, Intellias, right? So yes, we use it internally, but also I would give you where we have been using it now with some of our customers for the service delivery. For example, a very tedious element of any software development is testing, right? So how you use the Gen AI to generate testing scenarios based on this is what expected from this application to do, or from this feature to do, right? So and then getting those testing scenarios, and then using AI or machine learning algorithm to do the actual testing as well. So cutting the testing cycles from weeks, months into maybe days, and sometimes also hours. So that is just I'm also conscious of the time, just a quick example of how we improve the service delivery using Gen AI, in something that is you have to go through testing anyway, and then now with all what we have been speaking about, in terms of we need more services, we are creating more products, more apps, and so on. So testing is an essential part of any software development, and Gen AI plays And AI in general plays a great role into this. Thank you.
I can imagine. Thank you, Ahmed. We're getting very close to the end now. We've had a question in from one of the members of the audience, and I'm conscious we've only got just three minutes or so. So I'm just going to read it out, and if anyone wants to have a stab at it, please jump in. So the question is: collaboration is key for ROI, return on investment, on digital investment. However, partners of CSPs are enjoying good growth rates as telcos are slow. Why are outcome models not really leveraged by CSPs who prefer T&M? And what's the root cause of the issue? Does anybody want to have a bit of a crack at that one?
I can start, Kester, with specifically the first part of the question. Why are the growth rates being leveraged by others and less on CSPs? I think that's a bit of the discussion that's happening in the industry that you also refer to at the start, where we do have, let's say, all the key players working on how to change the regulatory in order to be able to actually monetize a lot of the capabilities we already have and we already have built. Of course, we need to do our homework there in order to be able to expose all of those capabilities. But in parallel, we do need also a change in the regulatory landscape in order to be able to actually provide that and let's say, bring some of those growth or revenues to us. Yeah. There is a second part of the question which refers to this time and material. And there I want to refer to what Ahmed, you mentioned at one point. I think that is definitely changing in the telco industry. For example, the transformation I referred to that we are doing, it is completely outcome-based. We do realize that we need our partners to be in this together with us. So the win of it is all of our win, and the investment of work and effort and tears and sweat is also all of us, because we want the same outcome. And this, I do think it's a trend is maybe the wrong word, but is maybe a change we see in the industry in general, where it is much more about the overall outcome that we all want to achieve, and we all go with skin in the game to make that happen, rather than the old way, which was here is, an RFQ with a long list of, 3,000 line items, and someone comes and says, yes, no. This doesn't operate or function anymore simply because of the complexity we operate in. So I fully agree with the statement that we need to change. And the good news is we are already on that journey. We are not really this traditional time and material based of the past. And yes, we need that in order to achieve that next step.
Absolutely. Michelle, Ahmed, anything just to add on that one, or any final thoughts?
Sure. I mean, I would just build on Mariam's points, really. I think there's definitely been that shift to outcome-based models. And I think there's probably a few things driving it. I think, the overall circumstances that we've seen globally off the back of COVID, economies under significant pressure, businesses under significant pressure. I think customers want more guarantees, right, around what it is that they are buying, what it is that they're going to get. And I think also there's perhaps a little bit more appreciation of saying, where does the expertise lie? And instead of coming as a customer to a large telco and saying, right, I know exactly what I want and it's all of these things, actually there's a shift in dynamic there when you go to a telco and say, this is the outcome, what's the best way to achieve that? Yeah. How can we use your technology more innovatively? How could we use that differently to ensure that we solve our really critical business problems? And I think having that real customer focus is a fantastic thing to see.
Well, thank you, Michelle. And I think that's a great place to bring this discussion to a close. I'd like to thank yourself, Michelle. Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you, Mariam. Some wonderful insights. I've really enjoyed the discussion. It's been very, very interesting. And Annie, thanks for the opportunity to moderate it, which was ever so easy because the contributions were also so thorough and interesting.
I know you've got great panelists.
Thanks for great panelists. And Annie, I'll hand it back to you.